Heat, humidity, thunderstorms, and, well, a break is coming, and we just can't wait to get out of this hot sponge we've been in the Northeast. But could be a significant break of this heat wave, and lots of dry air coming in the longer range. We're going to take a look at that. We're going to take a look at the tropics, all that, and so much more on tonight's Joe and Joe Weather Show, brought to you by Omni True Value Hardware at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York. Your go-to place for whatever you need for hurricane season, because remember, you should be prepared just in case. 631-756-1125 is the telephone number. And if it's not for hurricanes, remember they've got plenty of mulch so that your yard looks great this fall. So head over to 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York on Long Island, serving the entire tri-state area. And the website is
OmniTrueValue.com, Joe.
yes, indeed. It was the website yesterday, it's the website today, and it will be the website tomorrow. So, another day in the sponge, but before we get to that, I just want to acknowledge Robert Russo and Anthony Orr, two early Super Chat hits. And we thank them both for hitting the proverbial tip jar. So, how was the hot sponge today?
I didn't do very much outside. What can you do when it gets up to 94 with a dew point of 75 here at the home base? I ain't going out for any long length of time.
No, you can't function. I have to tell you, I went to Atlanta. Well, I went to Marietta yesterday, which is just outside of Atlanta by about 10 miles or so. And uh, the difference between the heat there and up here in the mountains, it's night and day. I mean, I can go outside here during the afternoon with the temperatures up in the low and middle 80s, but you get down south in the urban areas, it's 90 or 90 or around 90 or just over 90, but it's hard to take. I had a tough time being outside in that. That was uh, not a good experience.
No, it's not. Absolutely. You could step outside yet within 5 minutes. All your energy is already sapped by all of that heat and humidity.
Yep, and a lot of times, and I think this is what happens in Florida when it's hot, and I guess the Florida folks that watch our show will attest to this, particularly in South Florida. Uh, they go out early in the morning, and they're mostly done by 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning, and they're inside for the rest of the day.
I believe them. And that's the thing to do when you have this type of weather pattern. But as you've been teasing, Joe, it looks like we're going to be breaking out of this by the end of the week. In fact, by the time we get to Friday and Saturday and Sunday, we may have some of the nicest weather we've seen all summer long, strung together in 3 lovely days.
I think on one, if not maybe two of those days, there are going to be areas that are going to have a tough time getting out of the 70s. I think that's possible.
And I think dew points will be dropping in some cases into the 40s
Yes.
when we get into the weekend. So,
We're just full of
whole different.
we're full of such joy tonight, such bliss.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, we do have some more soupy days to go through. Um, I don't know how much of the models you looked at today. It's still kind of an interesting conundrum in the longer range, especially for next week. You hinted yesterday about the chance that maybe you could get some sort of coastal low to move up the seaboard, and I think you could certainly make that case off the model runs today.
Yep, I believe so. And the interesting thing is, it's weird. You would expect that after a long stretch of humidity and rather significant heat, that we would be looking at the potential in the next few days of a widespread outbreak of severe weather. And instead, I mean, I know where I am, the lower Hudson Valley, at least part of it, it has a moderate, not a moderate, um, what's the word I'm looking for? Not
What are
not
we trying to
not slight,
what are you trying to describe? The
not
dry situation?
no. I'm talking about in terms of I'm talking about sometimes you really have a real significant region where you could say there on that day, and there might be like Thursday. You can
Okay.
point to that and say we're going to have tremendous amounts of activity, severe weather activity, no question about it. And the best that we've been able to come up with tomorrow, maybe in parts of the Hudson Valley, marginal risk, but really and then just a broad area of general thunderstorm coverage for Wednesday. I don't know what Thursday and Friday will bring, or Friday will bring nothing,
Right.
and Thursday will probably bring nothing either. So maybe Wednesday into Wednesday night, but even there, we don't see anything really dynamic or significant. Yeah,
You
it's.
have to be
I mean, I'm not going to
you
say
very simply have to be lucky enough on these days. For example, yesterday and even today, where you get these pop-up showers and thunderstorms. Yesterday we had those line segments. We got all excited over those line segments of thunderstorms that moved through parts of Connecticut and into Massachusetts. But unless you're lucky enough to to hit that bullseye and get into those storms, you don't get anything. You don't get any rain. And you know what? The ground is so dry and so parched from the lack of general rainfall everywhere. Even if you were in one of those areas that got clobbered every once in a while with a couple of inches of rain, or even more than that, uh, it just it dries up just so quickly because what you really need is probably a good 12-hour area-wide soaking rain of an inch or two where it's got the time to really soak into the ground. And unfortunately, in a pattern like this, you just don't have it. You might have it next week if things set up a certain way, but you certainly don't have it now.
no, you don't. And it's quite possible that we will see between now and let's say Thursday night in the immediate area. Some areas may pick up less than a quarter of an inch of rain, and yet we're going to have a dramatic change toward drier and less humid, more comfortable conditions for Friday and the upcoming weekend.
Yep. Now, if you're lucky enough, because I know Tim on the chat board is crowing about what's going on up in Maine and points northward. And why, you ask? Because, and I'll pull up the map a little bit, pull it a little bit further south. It is in the upper, at least on the last plot, which was at 5 o'clock this afternoon, Joe. Most of Maine is sitting with temperatures in the upper 50s and low 60s because they're north of this frontal boundary. Also, they've got clouds and some areas getting a little bit of rain. You get outside of that, though, there are some areas as you start to go further north where there's a little bit less cloud cover and temperatures are in the upper 60s. And on Nova Scotia, it's in the lower 70s. So there's at least they got a little bit of a break today, but just jump to the other side of this at 5 o'clock this afternoon. And I don't know what station that is in southern New Hampshire. Maybe that's Concord. 92 at that particular point. 90s across Massachusetts, upstate New York. I don't know what that 95 is. But looks pretty close to where Albany is. But really, just some areas in upstate New York had a really sort of a brutally hot day. Some places more than others, but certainly you can see where all the hot air is. And yeah, now you go back out to the west on the current surface map. Here's tomorrow's cold front, and it's not much of a cold front because I'm looking. The air behind it is not even that much cooler than the air ahead of it. So the real cold front that we're looking for is way up here. And that's the one that when we get this down here and through here late on Thursday, when we get into Friday, we can smell the Canadian pines that will be in the air. It'll be very, very pleasant indeed when the air mass that's up here in Canada, and I'm looking at dew points in the low 40s, temperatures in the mid to upper 60s, that's going to be coming down. So we got to wait for that second front. And that, as you pointed out, and as I just said, we're talking Thursday here for that to get here.
Right, absolutely. And Mark Andre Moses on the chat board said, "Hi, it's 58 degrees Fahrenheit in Quebec City, Canada, right now."
Nice.
So
Welcome.
So lovely.
And meanwhile, just going further south, just wanted to look. They got a little bit of relief today in the Central Plains. The Dakotas are in the 70s. It's in the low 80s across Kansas. You head further south on the other side of this frontal boundary, and it's temperatures in the upper 90s to around 100 in Oklahoma and down through Texas as the heat continues. So some places getting an early break. Some places are not getting a break at all, and some places are getting a break, but they will just simply have to wait for it.
Such as us.
Such as
It's going to be
us.
a waiting game for us. Yeah.
And hey,
It's.
no, go ahead. I'm sorry. You go ahead. Finish.
No, I mean it's going to be more than just a day or two. We'll have to wait again. I think for one thing, I think the front that we're looking at now that's up near the Canadian-U.S. border, that'll be moving on through here probably sometime tomorrow evening, and then south of us on Wednesday. So Wednesday won't be quite as hot, although it'll still be rather humid. Not as hot because I think the winds will be coming more out of an easterly direction on Wednesday, which will help to temper the heat somewhat. But then we wait for a stronger push, a stronger cold front that'll be crossing through the eastern Great Lakes on Thursday and coming into our neck of the woods probably around daybreak on Friday. And I think, Joe, once we get to Friday evening, the winds both at the surface and also aloft are going to be pushing out of a northerly direction, and that will really, really bring the dew points down
Yes.
and really usher in a much cooler airflow. Temperatures in the Hudson Valley Friday, Saturday, and Sunday likely will be in the 50s, and that will make for a very well. All I could say is if my air conditioner could talk, it's been running nonstop for the last couple of weeks. The air conditioning will say, "Thank you."
Yes,
I finally shut it down.
it certainly will. This is what we're waiting for. I don't know. Why did this color change to gray? Oh, good Lord. It's so unfair. Let's see. Where's that? Let me see if I could change the color scheme on this thing. I'll go for red. They're going to do it? Nope. Come on. I'm sorry. Just bear with me, folks. I'm trying to get this where I can draw on the map. Okay, how am I supposed to do this? I'm clicking on the color. Oh, that's what I got to do. I got to click on the map here. Okay, there we go. We got a nice bright red now. This is what we're waiting for right up here. This upper low that's sitting between Great Slave Lake and Lake Winnipeg. And that is going to be swinging eastward into southeastern Canada. And then more importantly, when it gets in here, it's going to drop a nice trough and shoot. That's really what's been lacking. We have been getting weak upper troughs that have that, but the coolest air was pulled up way up in Canada. Even though we still had this sort of westerly flow aloft, the cool air was way up in Canada, and now at least we're getting that to drop a little bit further to the south, which is going to be helpful. And if you watch the upper air, and as you said, the dew points are going to drop on Friday night, and that's when that upper trough swings on through. This is Thursday evening, Friday morning, Friday afternoon, and Friday evening. That trough axis goes by, and then you get those northerly winds in the upper atmosphere and even at the lower atmosphere as well, and that's when you get the real dew point relief to come shooting in and shooting those low dew points down into the 40s. And the other thing I would point out is this trough. If you look at the strength of this trough, the wavelength goes all the way down to just off the Georgia coast. So that dry air is going to make it pretty far south. I mean, you're going to probably see some nice dew point relief through the Carolinas. I think you'll see some dew point relief in North Georgia, in Tennessee, and Kentucky. All those areas are going to enjoy some good dew point relief. And that's Mr. Upper Ridge is moving a little bit further to the west, ridging up into the Pacific Northwest. So our PNA, our Pacific North America index, going positive. And this is kind of what it looks like when it goes positive. You have higher pressures more in the west, lower pressures in the east, and in the upper atmosphere in particular when we look at this. And you notice the flow It's coming basically right out of northwest Canada into the southeastern part of the United States. You got to love it. I mean, this is what we've been waiting for.
Yeah, it's a midsummer night's dream, and it is midsummer now. So it's been a dream for the last few weeks, but it will become a reality once we get into uh, Friday. Friday is the day for relief, like Alka-Seltzer.
Yes, and by the way,
Relief is on the way.
and by the way, let's also acknowledge the fact that there are people. I, I don't know why, but everybody, people like some people like some things and dislike the opposite, and some people love the opposite and the side of the equation and dislike, dislike this shot of cooler air and drier air coming down. They love the heat and humidity. You just had two very long stretches of 90 plus in the Northeast and Northern Mid-Atlantic states. The first one, for some places, went 7 days with 90 plus temperatures and a couple of 100-degree readings peppered around. The second stretch actually was a little longer. Going tomorrow will be day 8 for 90 plus in a lot of places, but it's getting cut off. So you did pretty well. Those were two pretty solid stretches of heat and humidity, and now it's time to give them a break. Now, take a look, Joe. Look at what happens. I'm just pulling this the latest GFS, and it's been consistent. In the European, the GFS, they're all kind of showing the same idea. The bottom part of that, the northern part of that trough lifts out. The bottom part of that trough, however, drops down into the southeast. There's another trough for next week on Tuesday that sort of reinforces what's going on in the eastern half of the United States. The troughing in the eastern half of the United States, and the ridge in the west starts to really kind of pop up there. That's very interesting. Yesterday we saw the cutoff was in Chesapeake Bay. Now it's in western Pennsylvania, eastern Ohio, and extending southward from there. This is something that later next week has the earmarks of maybe some kind of a low developing off the southeast coast and rushing, moving up the eastern seaboard. Maybe that's our soaking rain possibility. And you mentioned this yesterday.
It's interesting that you mentioned this, because if you take a look at the Climate Prediction Center, and I'm sharing the screen right now.
Okay, hold on.
They are looking at.
Hang on.
They are looking at.
And there you go. Go ahead.
There you go. That green area, those green hatched lines, which envelop much of southern New England, the tri-state New York metropolitan area, southeast Pennsylvania, and down into the Virginias, and over into Kentucky, eastern Kentucky, where they really don't need it, and also enveloping portions of northern and eastern Tennessee and North Carolina. Slight what, you ask? Slight risk of excessive amounts of rainfall for what Joe was just talking about, for the time frame from the 16th through the 20th. That's a week from tomorrow through the end of, actually, a week from tomorrow to a week from Saturday. That 4-day stretch, actually 5 days if you include the 16th and run through the 20th. So this, I'm not saying it's going to be a drought buster, but this setup, if it does indeed form and take place, could very well spell the first really significant outbreak of precipitation, the first significant rainfall that this region has had, or at least our region has had, in many, many moons. And it is certainly well needed.
Can you widen that map out a bit?
Yes, I can. There you go.
All right, that's a little. Hold on a second. I got to look at it on. No, I can't even see it on there. So the southern edge of that green line, if I can see it correctly, does that go all the way down? You said it goes down into North Carolina. How far west does it go? It does.
It goes across northern South Carolina.
Okay.
It envelops all except extreme southwestern North Carolina and into northeastern sections of Tennessee and the eastern half of Kentucky. And it doesn't quite make it into Georgia, it would appear, but
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I actually don't need the rain because we've had our fair share of showers and thunderstorms around here to lighten things up. And also, by the way, we should point out, also in the Southwest, it looks like it continues to show uh, potential for some heavy rain there, and that's been going on for weeks now. And it's taking a long time to alleviate the drought there. That's how much work it has to do.
Right. Exactly. Um, let me just, yeah. The outer band is for a slight chance, and the inner and darker shade of green is for a moderate chance of precipitation, 16th to the 18th. And again, this is all basically due to monsoonal activity, the annual or the seasonal monsoon. Whereas what we may see next week is more of a synoptic situation, as you said, Joe, with some kind of a low pressure wave moving along the eastern or the Atlantic seaboard.
Okie dokie. So let's switch gears here just a little bit. Let's go to what's going on now, and then we'll come back to the upper air and the short range, and then we'll also look at the tropics. Satellite tonight, checking out the loop. You certainly see the clouds up in Maine, and as Tim on the chat board pointing out that he goes by latex dreams, whatever that means. Uh, that he had a 30-degree temperature drop where he is in New Brunswick, but you can see the clouds there, and that's certainly helping the cause to keep the temperatures down as well. They're north of that frontal boundary, and they extend back to the Great Lakes. Most of the shower and thunderstorm development. Now there's two. You can see there's like a little weak upper trough that moved across upstate New York into Pennsylvania. That little arc of clouds running eastward. Not much to it, okay? And as a result, there wasn't a whole lot with regards to some showers and thunderstorms happening. The second one for tomorrow is a little more energetic, and we're seeing showers and thunderstorms across, blowing up there in parts of the lower lakes, back in through parts of Indiana and Ohio and into Missouri. Also seeing some action in the Gulf states and down along the Gulf Coast. Those clouds dropping southward, going north to south. See a lot of disorganized cloud cover in the Gulf of Mexico. None of this is being forecast, being mentioned by the Hurricane Center. Uh, Dry, though, in the northern plains and into parts of the central plains. You can see how clear the skies are there. The Southwest doing its thing with the monsoonal shower and thunderstorm activity developing there. And we'll come back to the tropics in a moment. Meanwhile, look at the radar. Very busy with some strong storms coming out of Lake Erie, Joe, and they are rather strong here in western New York, northwestern PA, and right along the coastline of Lake Erie and Ohio. So it looks like Cleveland getting clobbered. There's a severe thunderstorm warning up in that general vicinity at 7:54 Eastern Time. Here in the Northeast, that trough, that lee trough, you can see that's produced this sort of narrow line of some showers and a few thunderstorms. And those, Joe, are going north of Route 84. But nothing severe out of that. And then there's another patch moving through eastern New Hampshire and some downpours in western Maine and some steady rain up in northern Maine, back up into on the Canadian side as well. But tomorrow, the thing with tomorrow is with the daytime heating, the marginal risk of severe weather implies that there could be, as you said, there'll be maybe some general thunderstorms around, and there might be some isolated severe thunderstorms in the mix. I think based on the strength of what's coming through tomorrow, that's what you're going to wind up with, and you're not going to get drought relief from something like that. It's just not enough.
No, I see that. I see the best chance. I did some back of the envelope calculations here, and I see the best chance in our area, or at least in the lower Hudson Valley, to receive shower and storm activity. Will the beginning of that may come as early as 3 to maybe 6 o'clock tomorrow in the mid to late afternoon, and that'll be with us probably right up until about midnight tomorrow night. So it'll be around, but whether or not any one specific area sees anything, well, that's going to be, debatable. I think you'll have maybe a 1 in 3 chance of getting a shower or thunderstorm. And that also means a 2 and 3 chance that you'll see maybe a lot of ominous clouds and absolutely nothing. Uh, as a slight, a chance for strong to severe weather, and that would be probably best over the hillier or higher terrain areas here in the Hudson Valley north of the I-84 corridor. So there you go. It's they'll be around tomorrow, but you're gonna have to be lucky if you're hoping for rainfall to be underneath one of those localized cells of precipitation. For me, if they had if they were able to actually think this out over the last week or 10 days, all the showers and storms they look like they're approaching my home, and then they say, "Oh, wait a minute, that's Rayo's house. Go to the north, go to the south." You know, maybe one will brush my home, and I'll get maybe about 3 minutes of showers, and that'll be about
All
it.
right.
So I could, I know so many people out there can use it. I could use it, the rainfall that is, and some of the most extensive patches of brown, both in my backyard and my front yard. Um, we really do need the water, and hopefully that'll come in one way, shape, or form. If not tomorrow, I think on Wednesday. I don't know if you agree with me on just Joe, but I think on Wednesday the threat will not be confined to the late afternoon or evening hours. It'll be pretty much an ongoing threat or risk,
Yeah.
although the best risk or the best chance will probably be later in the day.
Yeah, you're gonna have another one of those cold front corpses overhead. This one might take a
Yes.
little longer to die out because you have that, and then you have the next front that's going to be for Thursday. The stuff happening on Wednesday probably lends to the idea that there might not be much left around for the Thursday front to work on. So the Thursday front could very well be a wind shift with an isolated shower or thunderstorm when it goes by. That's kind of how I was seeing it. And then you start to get the initial push of dry and cooler air coming in behind that for Friday, and then the real push comes when the upper trough goes by, which would be Friday evening into Saturday morning. Meanwhile, the radars to the south. Just want to take you around the horn. We have some scattered showers and storms in the Carolinas and into northern Georgia, probably a little less than what we had around yesterday. They're a bit more numerous further south in the southern half of southwest Georgia, southern Alabama, southern Mississippi. They don't seem to be moving very quickly, so the rains are adding up, but not seeing any kind of flash flood warnings up. In the lower and middle Mississippi Valley and southern Missouri into Arkansas, western Kentucky, western Tennessee, a few downpours and thunderstorms and a couple of severe weather warnings there. Out to the west, uh, in the southern parts of Colorado, into New Mexico, Arizona, uh, some showers and some downpours. Yesterday there were, I think, half a dozen flash flood warnings that I saw in Arizona. Today, at this time, we only have one. But there's a constant 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 flash flood warnings in Southern California. Now, much of Southern California is not seeing anything, but there are areas that are getting clobbered by some heavy downpours in Southern California. I'm not sure specifically where, but for example, L.A. is not getting it. It's to the west, it's to the east of there. Also, up to the east northeast of Reno. And in northern Nevada and up into parts of Oregon, we're seeing some scattered showers and some downpours. And of course, in the northern plains and back up into the northern Rockies, it was nice and clear. The Storm Prediction Center, as I mentioned yesterday, we get into August, you really don't have them doing much showing up except on days 1 and 2, and they usually wait till you get to day 1 to add a couple of marginal risks, which they did this afternoon in areas in upstate New York with that weak trough that's going by. Doesn't seem to be doing much, though. And the marginal risk in northern Ohio back to northern Indiana, that seems to be a bit more active. Otherwise, everywhere else it's general thunderstorms. And as you said, Joe, tomorrow they stuck a marginal risk from southeastern, all of southern and southeastern New England, the middle and lower Hudson, actually even almost to the upper Hudson Valley, so almost the whole Hudson Valley down to New York City. Of course, they got to cut Long Island in half. Most of New Jersey except the southeast, eastern Pennsylvania, Maryland, most of Delaware, and a small portion of northeastern Virginia in a marginal risk. And then you got the general thunderstorm risks going on all over the place. Day 3, which is Thursday, they're not indicating any risk at the moment. And the map shows, you can see the general thunderstorm line goes from, say, Portsmouth, New Hampshire to about Albany, to about Williamsport, to Pittsburgh, to Columbus, Ohio, and then continues down through southern Indiana, southern Illinois. No thunderstorms to the north and west of that line. And then, of course, if we could go to the next day, it's going to show nothing for the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic states, the Great Lakes, and most of the Ohio Valley.
Yes, sir. It does not look. How about if we just go to the tropics?
Okay.
We do have something to talk about. Just a little something to talk about.
Just a smidge
out there.
All right.
Just a smidge. I saw. What did I see? On the CBS Evening News tonight. The gentleman who does the weather for CBS, because they're partnered with CBS, the Weather Channel, and toward the end of his discussion, he gives the impression that and here the tropics are becoming active now. Here they come, and you look at it.
Hold on, I got to come full screen for this. I feel a rant coming on. Go ahead.
No, it's not a rant. I'm just
saying. No. I'm gonna rant. Go ahead.
Oh, you're the rant.
Yeah.
You're the ranter. Okay. Rant away.
No, you finish your thought. Finish your thought.
No, I'm just saying that he made it sound that something is developing now. Finally, we're seeing something off the coast of Africa. It has just rolled off the coast of Africa, and we'll be watching it, and we'll be seeing what's going to happen with that. And he made it sound like there was an impending hurricane that was beginning to develop, and really we're just looking at nothing more than just a tropical wave.
Right. At this point.
It's been quiet this month of August.
Listen, you remember, you remember back in the day, Joe, I mean, this stuff would never even get mentioned. I mean, how we used to have to dig around just to get the tropical weather outlook was not something that was really disseminated in public. You certainly didn't see news stories like you see now. I probably get it because, after all, Google is basically, sucking all my personal information whenever it can, along with Facebook and anything else out there, which we, of course, have all given voluntarily. Anyway, I always get this news story every day. They do one every single day. The Hurricane Center is watching all through the last couple of weeks where on the outlooks there was nothing. They were saying, the Hurricane Center is watching 3 tropical waves, watching 4 tropical waves, watching 2 tropical waves, and buried somewhere in the fine print that said, but none of these are forecast to develop into anything even minor. Okay, but it's written so that, of course, you're going to click on it and read it and all the rest of it, and I get that, but I really at times because we haven't had anything of consequence. At least I don't know about you, but at least I'm not getting the messages where people are sending messages saying, and they always use, I love this phrase, quote, I'm hearing that there's a tropical storm coming up the East Coast, or I'm hearing that there's going to be a hurricane next. I'm hearing, okay. And I often say, I often think about that. It's like, okay, where are you, quote, hearing this from? Okay.
Yes.
Do you have somebody that is out there with a megaphone saying, tropical wave is going to become a hurricane and move up the East Coast next week? I mean, is that what you're kind of describing? I mean, just be honest about it and just say, I read some news story on some other website, and they're touting some people will say that to me. I saw on some other website, or I saw on somebody else's social media page, this, that, or the other thing. Thankfully, I haven't seen any of that in the last month, which is, it's for a much more relaxing existence. And I guess the point of all this is I wish we could go to a much more relaxed time where you didn't worry about things until there was at least something tangible that you could put on put to it that you could say, okay, you know what? There's something out there. I mean, when I say something out there, there's a tropical system that's out there that's either a depression or a tropical storm or about to become a tropical storm or something a little bit more. And then you've got maybe something in the upper air over North America that suggests that, well, maybe this could be a threat for somebody down the road. I mean, but it's something that's tangible, something that's obvious. We don't have that. I worry, I tell everybody if I'm not worried about something, you shouldn't be worried about it. If I get worried about something, then you should be worried about it. And thankfully,
Right.
we haven't gotten to that point yet, but you know it's coming soon. You know it's coming soon.
So you didn't put any credence in the GFS, the 6Z GFS from earlier this morning, where at 348 hours they had it looked like a Category 3
Yeah,
storm
coming up the
or
eastern seaboard,
hurricane
which of course,
coming up the eastern seaboard.
which of course is gone on the very next run. No, look, I'll say what I said yesterday. The fact that that bottom part of that trough is separating and moving into the Ohio Valley and has a trough axis that's down along 80 is would be something that would be a little worrisome to me if there were a tangible system that we could say, okay, there's something out there. It looks like it's going to develop. It looks like it's going to get in a position somewhere between Bermuda and the Bahamas down the road. Okay, within a reasonable long range time frame. 330 some odd hours is not a reasonable long range time frame in my
No,
view. So I'll just say this. With regard, I'll say this. With regards to the upper pattern that we've had across North America and the Atlantic in the last month, obviously that has been not conducive to tropical cyclone development. We're going to something different now. We're going to where the ridge is going out to the west, the trough is coming back into the east, the profile in the Atlantic is changing, and the profile over the tropics is changing. So I would expect that something is going to develop in the next week to 10 days. Something is going to develop. Now, what happens to that, I don't know. We pointed yesterday that there's a lot of shear north of 20 degrees north, so it's got to get through that first if something forms. But we're going into a different setup. So I would say I would just repeat what I just pretty much repeated what I said yesterday. I'm kind of intrigued by the trough, the position the way it is, but until there's something to be concerned about, I'm not concerned.
and let's service one of our chat board attendees. This is Owen Danyo. Owen Danyo is asking, I'll be in Missouri, Missoula, Montana tomorrow. Can you check the weather? And I just did for you, Owen. And I hope you dress lightly. Sunny, hot, high 100 with calm winds becoming northwest later in the day. And the one thing about being in Missoula, Joe, is that at least, even though it gets very hot, during the nighttime hours, things cool off quickly into the low 60s and 50s. So it's cool at night, but it gets real hot during the day. And Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, all of those days, if you're still out there, Owen, hot, 90s to around 100, and maybe a late day thunderstorm, maybe on some of those days. Thank you to the chairman. He hit super chat. He's working tonight. He
Awesome.
also says, Joe, please keep his mom in his thoughts because he's suffered a bit of a setback, unfortunately. But we certainly will keep her in our prayers.
Yes. Yes.
And he asked me, he says, with a full moon this weekend, I'm guessing the Perseid meteor shower will not be impressive. I'll tell you what, Scott, it has been so long since the weather has been nice just to step outside and see a few stars that even with the full moon this weekend, you just might want to, in the late night hours after midnight, or if you want to be out in, toward dawn, if you have that much time, early Saturday morning, early Sunday morning to catch a few of the Perseid meteors. Most of them will be blotted out by the moon, but they do occasionally produce outstandingly bright fireball meteors and even occasionally an exploding meteor, which we call a bolide, and just seeing one of those will make your whole night. So, with the weather getting so much nicer over this weekend, much lower humidity, cooler temperatures, in spite of the moon, I think I'll step outside for a while and take and look for a few of those celestial streakers this weekend. But anyway, thank you for the super chat hit. And Owen Daniel, you now know what to expect if you're going to be, well, I'm not if, you say you are going to be in Montana tomorrow. So good luck. Enjoy Big Sky Country. But again, it's going to be hot. But what else is new?
Yep.
You've been here in the East, it's also been hot.
All right, let's look at what's happening in the tropics. And just from last week, if you look at the satellite loop, things are a bit different in the tropical Atlantic. One thing that's I've noticed during the last the last 48 hours or so is that intertropical convergence zone, or the ITCZ, which is what it used to be called. Now it's called the MDR. Has you can actually see the thing just basically migrate north almost as a complete entity. And most of the wave activity now has moved up. Instead of being south of 10 degrees north, which I've just put this obnoxious red line on the map for you, they are along and north of 10 degrees north. So that's already, that's telling us that the wave action is going to be important. As the waves are coming out further to the north, they have a more of a chance of development. I don't really see a whole lot of shear going on the satellite loop between 10 degrees north and say 20 degrees north. So in this zone, I think you have a chance for something to develop. And the area in question is right here. I mean, this is the tropical wave that the Hurricane Center is looking at. The latest outlook, by the way, hasn't changed. They have a 20% chance of development in the next 2 days and a 40% chance of development in the next 5. And the general motion looks like it will be west, or maybe eventually a little bit more to the west-northwest. Oh, I guess. Oh, that's. I'm trying to draw an arrow here. Oh, there's the arrow. Nope, that's not what I wanted to do. Oh well. Let's try this again. Let's try this again. So let's click on the arrow, and I've clicked on the arrow. So the general motion should be something like this, toward the west-northwest. I will also point out that there are on the lower right, and you can take a look at this here. Just going to clear it up. We'll clear that. And if you look on the lower right, there's another wave right in, oops. All right, I got to, right in here. There's another, because of the angle, it's a little tough to draw, but there's another wave right behind it. There's actually a lead tropical wave ahead of it, and that's this disorganized mess that's running out ahead. That doesn't look like it's going to be able to develop into anything, but the one that's now southwest of the Cabo Verde Islands is the one that the Hurricane Center is focusing on. The clouds in the Caribbean, you can see the higher clouds are moving from west to east. The lower clouds are moving from east to west. There's a lot of wind shear there, so nothing's going to come out of that. And the Gulf of Mexico is just all disorganized, and there's a cold upper low that's out there as well, and that doesn't look like it's going to have an opportunity to develop, as most of that stuff is probably going to head back westward. But again, that's the trough that's there. Let me bring up the North Atlantic map, and this will give us an idea of what it looks like pretty much out across from the eastern 2/3 of the United States. You get to see all of the Atlantic Ocean, the western coasts of Europe, and western Africa. And I'm just going to roll this back to 72 hours. Now, there's an upper low. Here's where your trough is coming into the east. Okay, there is an upper low that is sitting near to the southeast of Bermuda. So let me clean that up. So right here, we've got an upper low. Okay, here is your upper high. There's another upper low between the Azores and Portugal. So it's kind of under that upper low there, but I'm sorry, the upper high right in here would be something. This is now 84 hours from now. So there's a weakness that right in this area here, there's a weakness, and that's why the Hurricane Center is kind of pointing the arrow toward that direction because of what's out there. Now let's watch to see what happens. That upper low actually is forecast to weaken and disappear, and the upper high is forecast to build a little, but it's not overly strong. And now, of course, you see the trough that's in the east. That East Coast upper trough drops. So I don't know. This to me, Joe, the Atlantic to me is not set up. Even if something were to develop, I just wonder if it's going to be able to, I just wonder how far west it's going to be able to get because you got a south-southwest flow in the longer term from the Bahamas to Bermuda to Newfoundland. So I would kind of say that even if something were to develop, I don't know that it's going to make it anywhere close to the East Coast from what I'm looking at right now.
Yeah, and the that high that's out over the Atlantic, and I'm not even sure if we could call it. Well, I guess we could call it sub. The interesting thing is right now we could call it a Bermuda high, but if you look on the long range maps over the next week or 10 days, that high kind of shifts northward. In fact, it becomes quite strong, not over Bermuda, but in an area several hundred miles to the east of Newfoundland, and the overall control that it has on the Atlantic, whatever this thing is that's coming off of the coast of Africa, has come off the coast of Africa, this wave, if it manages to hold together, it's really going to be shunted or suppressed or kept well south. And of course, you mentioned also there's a certain amount of wind shear going on out there.
Look at the map on the screen. Now this is for Wednesday evening. Okay, north of 20 degrees north from the Caribbean across Puerto Rico and the Dominican Republic, and then all across the Atlantic north of 20 degrees north, you've got screaming westerly winds in the upper atmosphere of 30 knots or higher. And there's a low center, 1,007 low. Now, where it's sitting south of 20 degrees north, there's a zone there of very little wind shear. But eventually, it's going to start moving west-northwestward. The shear doesn't go away, but the low does. You can barely find it.
Yeah. So the big question is, will this be able to survive? Down the road, and it doesn't look like it's going to be a battle. Let's put it that way. And if that's the only thing that you can get excited about, that's the only thing that puts a footnote on the CBS Evening News. Hey, we're watching this thing that's off the African coast. It really does not look like something that is. I mean, I know you have too, Joe. I've seen systems that come off the African coast, and you can just see when they come off. You say this is going to be a beast. This is going to be a monster.
Right.
This is going to be something. And I think the fact that this is being led by a smaller wave, that smaller wave may be conducive to this the system that is being watched. If it's following a smaller tropical disturbance, that may actually serve to keep the system, at bay, or to keep it relatively weak.
Right, and notice also, take a look at the surface here on this GFS run. I mean, you can see the low there in the tropics. It's 1,007 low. There's actually a little 1010 low that's to the northeast of it with that lead wave that it disappears for one time frame and disappears. But let's assume that this is correct, that it's literally correct. It just kind of says that, well, you'll probably maybe have a tropical depression that goes along, but it never really does anything. That doesn't, by the way, and that doesn't necessarily mean it's correct. I mean, you certainly, a lot of times the models don't often catch these systems that then they wind up becoming tropical storms. I don't think they're going to miss a major hurricane in the short range. Once upon a time, the models didn't really reflect tropical systems well at all. Now they do, so you could have a little more confidence in them. But look what happens to this. It just basically gets lost I mean, there's still an identifiable closed isobar northeast of Puerto Rico next Monday. And then there's just like an open wave. And of course, remember, if we're talking about maybe something in the east next week that's going to come up the coast or be just offshore, and in this particular run, it's got an inland low that runs northward. The I feature that is that tropical system is well out to the east, and you can barely see it, but it is there, well east of Virginia. There's like two little tight closed isobars there. But my point is, if what's going to happen in the east happens literally the way it's shown, you're going to wind up with something that's way out and may not have a chance to develop because there's just too much shear going. There's just too much upper air shear going on.
Right. Right. I agree with you.
Famous last words.
Yeah. We'll see. The next week will be an interesting week, and hopefully we will see some kind of a coastal low bring some much needed rainfall to our neck of the woods, because we certainly do need it.
Right. Oh, and by the way, on the 384 hour, there is a hurricane halfway between the Cabo Verde Islands and the Leeward Islands. There's a 978 low there. So maybe it's going to be one of the waves behind this one that, as you said, we'll see when it comes off the African coast what it looks like. Maybe that will be the power, maybe that one would be a bit more of a powerhouse. Maybe that one will have conditions that are favorable. But I also would point out that at that point, by the way, it's August 20th. We're talking about August 22nd, 23rd, 24th. So if this first thing doesn't do anything, we might have to wait another week for something may have to wait another week for something to form.
I think it's been a trade-off this year, Joe, because the people who have been jumping up and down and talking about climate change and global warming and everything, in past years we've had so much tropical activity by this time, and they point the finger that, oh, look at that, and we got another hurricane, and blah, 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 blah. But this year, notice that the naysayers haven't had much to talk about in terms of hurricane and tropical activity. So they've turned around and they said, well, let's see, what else can we pick on? Oh, yeah, the heat, and talking about the heat. So if it's not the threat of tropical storms and hurricanes, it's unseasonably warm or hot weather that they highlight or headline.
Oh yeah, well, they gotta have a headline.
That's right. And what I'm saying is that they've been talking about hot, heat, all this through the summertime, and so I kind of like to get a double take when the gentleman from the Weather Channel tonight said, "Oh, and look what's coming off of Africa," and putting a certain inflection in the voice and making it sound like it's going to become a hurricane, and this is something that we're going to have to watch and everything. And I said, give me a break.
You know what? No one has the guts, at least when we did it. At least when we did it, and I could certainly, I won't speak for you, but I'm sure I know you, so I could say that when we did those things where we saw there's a wave coming off the African coast, if there was no chance of it developing, we would say there's no chance of it developing. Or
right.
If it was in the Atlantic and it was developing, but it looked like it was going to fall apart or go out to sea or whatever, we would say that. They don't do it anymore. They try to keep it up as much as they can until they have to let it go at some point. And that's the thing that's troubling to me, because especially among young people who haven't lived long enough as you and I have, and know that a 7-day stretch of 90+ weather is no big. It's a heat wave, but it's no big deal when you've lived through stretches of 12 or 13 days, or 12 days in a row of 100+ heat in Dallas. Is nothing compared to the record, which is at 41 days. And we could go on and on with this, but you get my point. You get what I'm getting at here.
Right.
There's, they're just, they just, never mind. Let's move on. So here's tomorrow's front. The GFS doesn't do much, but I tend to think there'll probably be a little bit more in the way of shower and thunderstorm activity around, and I'm going to respect SPC's marginal risk. Otherwise, it's just more of the same with scattered stuff in the east. That front stalls out. The corpse, as Joe likes to put it, develops some showers and storms Wednesday night into Thursday morning. Finally, the real cold front pushes everything out, and we get the nice big high that comes on in. The front goes way offshore, so there's no issues for Friday and over the weekend. And let's bring up the dew point map, because then I want to mention something to you when we're done, when I'm done with this. But here are the dew points. And get ready, my friends in the southeast, because you're going to love this. But here's Friday. Look at the dew points. By Friday morning, the GFS has got it in a little faster here, Joe. It's got the dew points. The 50-line dew point is to New York City by Friday morning. It's got 40 dew points by Friday afternoon. And lasting through Friday night into Saturday, 41 dew point in northern New Jersey, 39 at Albany, 39 up at Glens Falls. And Sunday, still with 40 dew points. The dew points in the southeast getting to the 40s all the way into northern Georgia and the northern half of South Carolina, almost all of North Carolina and Virginia in 40 and 50-degree dew points. And I'll push it up to Monday, and we're still got dew points in the northeast in the upper 40s and low 50s Monday afternoon. Yeah, it's going to hang on. That dry air is going to it's going to take a while for this. It's going to be a nice little stretch of low humidity starting on Friday and going at least into Monday, maybe even into the first part of Tuesday of next week.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And I agree with you on all counts on that.
Oh, and by the way, not to leave out our friends in the Great Lakes and in the Ohio Valley and in the Tennessee Valley, you too are getting a nice little break, and actually even into parts of the plains, getting into a little bit of break with the lower dew points for different reasons. But you know, low dew points are nice, unless of course you're somebody that really doesn't like low dew points and you like heat and humidity. And well, you had your fun the last couple of weeks. So here's what I want to bring up, and I want to ask you. Because I'm already seeing this, and naturally, it's apocalyptic. Because it has to be apocalyptic. It has to be. So one of the farmers' almanacs has come out and said that virtually most of the East, as I've been reading whatever the headlines are, the word quote a brutal winter, quote, for the eastern part of the United States. And I'm not shocked. I'm not at all shocked or surprised that I'm reading that, but I'm just wondering what your thoughts are with regards to that brutal winter.
I remember one particular Saturday where it was 9 degrees here at my house, and I had to go outside and shovel 3 inches of snow. And I've seen the predictions, and I've seen how, in some cases, they're calling for temperatures in parts of the plain states as low as 40 below zero for this coming winter season. So, yeah, I could see that. I could see it happening. I don't have the whole slate of information in front of me here, but don't forget, Joe, that this past winter, we started off December was the hottest December we've had. I use the word hot because it really was. I mean, by December standards. And don't forget, we also had those devastating tornadoes,
yes,
which never happened before in December. And everybody said, "Oh my goodness, it's going to be for the snow lovers and for the people like cold weather, this is going to be terrible, and the whole winter is going to be." And almost immediately, right after December came and went, boom, everything flipped, and we went into a more typical wintry type regime for January and February. So, whatever they call for, whatever they're saying, that at one point during the winter, it is going to get very cold, and there will be a couple of shots of snowy conditions. I just don't simply have the entire forecast in front of me so that I could look it over
Well,
and
I mean, I guess my, the point you've just made is my point. We don't know how it's going to evolve. I have no clue. I've read a few things along the lines of the fact that being that this is the third year we've had this La Nina for 2 years, and usually in the past when we've had back-to-back La Nina years, that third year, the winters in the eastern part of the United States tend to be on the rough side. Uh, you could look at a few people have brought up 95, 96 in terms of the what's going on with the hurricane season, and using that as a corollary maybe for the winter. And we know the 95, 96 winter was a snow lover's dream for much of the eastern part of the United States. But I just guess I just take issue with the fact that it's the way it's written and the way it's presented, the way it's disseminated. Not that I'm not faulting the Farmer's Almanac for putting out what they put out, but it's disseminated in such a way that it makes it sound as if it's inevitable. And the fact is, we just don't know. We don't know what's going to, we don't know how this is all going to evolve.
they make it sound. They try to make it sound, and I've seen this, especially since I've been buying the almanac now for God knows how many years, how many decades. But nowadays, it seems like you're right. It makes it sound like it's going to happen. It's not so much a long range prognostication. Now it's a long range. It's going to happen, and listen to us. We're going to, that kind of thing. And but that's I guess how you sell almanacs.
Yeah.
Just like the magazines sell magazines and the newspapers sell newspapers. Remember, Joe, the old saying: "If it bleeds, it leads."
I would just I would just say this as we look at, let me put this out there for everybody. If you really want to get a gauge for how the winter may turn out, and it may not necessarily be right, but it'd be an interesting experiment. So here's what you should do, and it's easy to find. Look at the futures contracts for heating oil, heating oil and natural gas. Okay, so watch to see what the months out. You go look at the futures contracts. There's contracts for every month. So what you want to look at maybe are start looking at November futures, December futures, January, February, and so on. Look at the futures contracts for those months and see if if those prices are higher than what they are now. And they may very well be, but I would watch how those markets trade, because those markets are weather sensitive. And, sometimes you can get a sense of where the overall weather pattern may be going by just by looking at how the futures markets are trading, because that's basically a barometer of human emotion. And a lot of those folks use long-range meteorologists that are really know their subject matter and make their trading bets based on that. So it might be an interesting experiment to see if those markets might give us a tip-off as to what kind of winter we're may have, or at least what the traders think the kind of winter we're going to have. Anyway, just putting it out there.
Here's the Old Farmer's Almanac. There are two almanacs. There's one with an orange cover called The Farmer's Almanac, and then there's the Old Farmer's Almanac. And I believe, Joe, the Old Farmer's Almanac, the weather is actually produced or predicted, the long-term forecast, by one of the meteorologists at AccuWeather.
Oh, okay.
And they put it out there, and they say, okay, here's what we're calling for. So it's done a certain way.
Oh, I have to stop you.
What?
I have to stop you. We have a pornographic spam bot on there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Notice it popped on immediately after I put the Farmer's Almanac up on the
weather porn, regular porn. It's all Get the Timothy Veltman, of course, was right on it. He deleted. He deleted the message. Johnny Quest was right on it. Also, deleted the. Why did I say Timothy Veltman? I saw his name up here before. Well, maybe wait. If I see that, I see that. Thank you, Johnny Quest, for getting rid of that. I thought I saw Timothy Veltman's name up there. Yes. I just love these. By the way, uh, I appreciate some of you have been reporting on the YouTube comments for these for this show and for the Weather in 5 videos that I do. You get these these bots that are going on there and putting up these porn links, and many of you have been reporting those links as spam. Really appreciate you doing that because I try to catch them. I get notified when somebody puts on when those links get put on, so I immediately try to get them right away and go on there and get rid of them. But sometimes I'm not fast enough, so but some of you have been doing that, so I really do appreciate it. Thank you. Isn't this fun? Let's go to Perry. Let's go to Briller Jeopardy.
All right, let me just get to Mr. Briller's site and see what we have here. And he would like me to choose out of the 30 questions tonight. He said, I think it'd be good for Mr. Choppy tonight, numbers 21, 23, and 27.
Okay.
So I'm going to do that. So we're going to go to the first one is number 21. That would be page 3, I think. All right, here we go. What was unusual, Joe, about the episode entitled The Case of the Deadly Verdict?
Oh, that's the case that Perry lost, and his client was sentenced to the to the gas chamber. So he had to.
It begins
with him losing the case. The jury coming in and.
It begins with Perry losing a murder case. One of the chief executives on the show, Gail Jackson, released statements to the press about Mason's failure at the beginning of the 1963-64 season so that new interest would be stimulated in the show. Mason did lose other cases, such as the case of the terrified typist, but his client is always found innocent in the end.
Correct.
So there you go. That's interesting that Gail Patrick Jackson, I might add, and she, releasing, Perry's going to lose a case. And, of course, naturally, the newspaper's scurrying around saying, Perry lost the case. He lost again. And then, of course, everybody wants to watch to see Perry finally lose a case.
Yes.
So he did. He did. All right. So that's, hold on for a second. And so what was the other ones? 23 and 27. All right. So 23, what was unusual about the last 4? This Joe, I know you're not into the colorized TV movies, but I'll ask this question anyway. What was unusual about the last 4 Perry Mason TV movies?
Raymond Burr had died, so they had substitute actors in there.
The audience never sees or hears Perry Mason. Sadly, he died in 1993 of cancer after 26 appearances in the new series, and yet the producers, who are glomming for as much money as they possibly can, Dean Hargrove and Fred Silverman, continue to go ahead and make another 4 movies without Perry. They retitled the series Perry Mason Mysteries and brought in attorneys who were, quote, friends
of Perry Mason. It was like, I guess they must have got the idea when Raymond Burr had to have some surgery done. There were 4 episodes where you had Betty Davis, Michael Rene, Walter Pidgeon, and one other actor kind of substituting for him. And then there was another one in I believe it was in season 8. There was one episode where you see Raymond Burr's arm is in a sling, so they had another person. I don't remember who the actor was. But go on, go to the next question.
And here's the last question of the night. Which of the following leading Hollywood actors appeared in the episode entitled The Case of the Treacherous Toupee? And your choices are, and I disagree strongly with the term leading Hollywood actors because, for example, Adam West, he was a leading Hollywood actor. Leonard Nimoy, I know he was an actor big on Star Trek. Burt Reynolds or Robert Redford?
Okay, you know what? I've seen that episode, but I'm having a terrible time remembering what it was about. I've seen the episodes with Leonard Nimoy. I've seen the episode with Robert Redford. Who are the other two choices? Adam West and what?
And Burt Reynolds.
And I've seen the Burt Reynolds one. All right, so I'm going to say it's either probably Burt Reynolds or Robert Redford. So I'll go with Robert Redford.
And you are correct.
Okay.
The other three actors all appeared in other episodes of the famous show, as did Barbara Eden, Jerry Van Dyke, Jim Davis, Angie Dickinson, and many others. But
and by the way, I want to mention that I saw yet another episode with Ruta Lee in it. So she must have been in like 6 or 7 of them.
Yeah, she's the female Victor Buono.
And Victor Buono I've seen in probably like half a dozen Perry Mason episodes.
Right. All
right, so is that
and there you go.
That was the last question?
That's the last for the night.
All right, my poor dog has to go out. So let's say good night. So why don't you say good night tonight?
Good night, and once again, we were brought to you by Omni True Value. If you need mulch for the summer, if you need salt or
1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York, 631-756-1125 is the telephone number, and the website is... And the website is...
OmniTrueValue.com.
Yes.
There it is. There it goes. Good night, everybody. See you tomorrow night at 7:30.
Good night, everybody.